So today I'd like to welcome Dr. Jenny Brockis. Welcome to the Burnout Show, Jenny.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about BrainFit and what got you to this organisation that you're in now?
Okay, long story short, I was born in the UK and I was training to be a doctor, and having completed my studies and having got married, my husband got headhunted to come over to Australia. So I came with him, obviously, and set up my own group medical practice, which I absolutely loved doing. It had been my primary goal. I'd always had this dream of running my own show and providing the best medical care that was possible to give on a holistic level. I hated the idea of people coming in, just seeing the doctor for sort of 30 seconds and then being shoved out the door with a prescription. I was really interested in sort of getting to know people and really sort of getting down to the nitty-gritty of what was going wrong and how to help them best. So I had very high ideals, very high expectations of myself and my staff. I had a group practice, so I had other doctors working for me. I had a number of receptionists too. And it was all going really, really well, except it wasn't. It was over a period of time that I realised I was just getting more and more tired. Every time something didn't get done, or every time somebody was sick and there was a gap to be filled, it was always me that filled it. At the same time, I had two small children and a husband who travelled extensively for business. And life was full, life was busy, but I was used to busy, and I just sort of knuckled down and kept going. And until one day I went to see a therapist because I had chronic neck and shoulder pain. So I had become a real pain in the neck. And while I was there, I just passed out. And I thought, oh, it's a bit strange. I'm just tired. It's a long weekend. I'll go home, have a rest. I'll be fine for Tuesday. Well, Tuesday turned into a gap year. Wow. Where I basically never went back to work in my practice again. I lost my business completely. I was physically and mentally unable to do anything. I just sat in a chair or lay in bed and didn't do anything particularly especially for the first couple of months. Yeah. My GP was really good and referred me to a wonderful psychologist who was known to help doctors who were struggling with various things, so that he was very empathetic, and I think that made the biggest difference. I was also exceptionally fortunate that my partner, even though he's never had any issues like this at all, he's never had anxiety or depression, he was very supportive too. He said, look, I don't actually get why this has happened or what you're experiencing, but he was just there for me. And just knowing that just made me feel so much better and helped to alleviate some of the guilt. Yeah. So after 12 months, when I was starting to feel more like a human again, I then spent another 12 months thinking, well, what am I going to do? Because people were saying, oh, go back to being a general practitioner. You're wonderful at it. And I said, actually, no, I think that will just make me sick again. So I resisted that siren call and explored all sorts of different businesses. I set up day trading, which I hated. I started doing writing. I started doing sort of creativity projects. I did project property development for a little while. It was all very interesting, but nothing really sort of got me. And then little by little, because I decided originally that I was never going back to medicine again. But after a little period of time, I felt, well, actually, I've got some skills. I love working with people. What can I be doing differently that's actually going to be still of great value, but isn't general practice? So I set up BrainFit, which is basically an organisation, which is me, where I provide workshops, training and coaching to help people be the best version of themselves, which sounds a bit trite, but basically it's founded on remembering to look after ourselves as human beings. So I've done further study. I'm I'm one of these junkies when it comes to learning new stuff. I can't get enough of it. I'm always wanting to learn something new. You know, bright shiny thing. Let's go there. So I got right into lifestyle medicine and loved it because it just made so much sense to me. So it was all about, you know, the importance of sleep and healthy nutrition and getting enough physical activity and rest and relaxation, which, you know, we often sort of ignore. And I realized that this was probably the missing piece that could help so many people function at a high level in a sustainable way, because I was so sick of hearing people saying, oh, Jenny, can you come and talk to our organisation about resilience? Because I think our team needs to learn how to be more resilient. And I'm going, oh, no, here we go again. Yeah. Because I'd come to understand that resilience isn't about keeping on pushing through regardless. It's about knowing when to step back, when to say enough, and to give yourself time to rest and restore. So I've been in the brain fit space now for a decade. I can't believe where the last 10 years has gone. Yeah. And at first people were going, oh, brain fit? What's that all about? Because I was right into the neuroscience and the positive psychology, and people were going, wow, you know, your brain does this and that. And so they were really interested in it. And it was about how to sort of make it practical so that people can say to themselves, well, this is actually what I can do for me, rather than me saying, oh, here's my prescription, do this, do this, do this, do this, because we're all different. Yes. It was really about helping people to understand that we're all capable of so much ourselves if we give ourselves permission, which is often the hard piece, especially as a woman, because we're busy looking after everybody else. Yes. To undertake those things that actually help us to be able to fully thrive, I guess. Yeah.
Incredible. And 10 years, I can imagine the conversation about burnout would be so different, you know, now compared to 10 years ago.
Well, can I be honest here? I didn't have a conversation 10 years ago.
There you go. Yeah.
10 years ago, especially in the medical circles, you know, admitting to any form of weakness was just a no-no. It would be a career destroyer. Yeah. So you didn't talk about the fact that you might have had anxiety or depression. And certainly burnout was never mentioned in any form. And I had experienced such shame, such guilt from what I was experiencing, because I felt I'd let everybody down. I'd let my family down. I'd let my kids down. I'd let my patients down. I'd let my staff down. I'd let myself down. So I was really wallowing in shame, if you like. And it took a long time before I felt comfortable in any shape or form to actually share what had actually happened. People just knew that, oh, Jenny had disappeared. She had sort of evaporated. Her business was now being run by somebody else. What had happened? And nobody really knew. I mean, obviously my very close friends knew, but nobody else. I didn't share it. It wasn't until probably the last couple of years that I actually felt safe enough to speak about it. And interestingly, the more I've shared it, the more I've come to realize just how prevalent it is.
Yes.
And also that it's this sharing of our experiences, our stories, that makes the biggest difference, because it helps other people to realize they're not alone.
Absolutely.
Because when you're in it yourself, and I don't know if this is true for you as well, you do feel terribly alone.
Yes.
It feels like you're the only person going through this. And you can't imagine other people doing the same. But I've come to realize that so many people either on the brink of burnout or heading that way and don't realize it, or denying it like I did. Yeah. It's so prevalent. And I think we've really got to, if we want to make a difference here, and this is why I'm so delighted that you're doing what you're doing, is to make it normal to talk about these things, because that's the only way we can address what's causing it, which is basically the idea that in order to be successful, we have to push ourselves to the limit and beyond. It's no good just giving everything 100%. It has to be 110 or 150% in everything. And I do understand that it's partly personality driven too. I am highly motivated to do things and do them properly.
Yes.
But it's interesting looking at some of the research. There's not been a lot of research done into sort of who is particularly at risk, but there was one study I found which showed that they were looking at people, the people who are the controllers at airports, monitoring the aircraft coming in and out of airports, really demanding job. You've got to be so focused all the time. And they found that the ones who were most susceptible to burnout were very often the people who were perceived as being the most resilient. Isn't that interesting?
Sure.
They were the ones who were super organized, really efficient, really effective, known to be really good at their job. And they were the ones who were more at risk, possibly because they either didn't recognize that they sort of exceeded their ability to cope anymore, or they just chose to ignore it. I don't know. But that was so interesting to me because I thought, oh, wow.
Definitely. Yeah. I do think it's interesting that, you know, I've heard quite a few titles about this year being the burnout year, the year of the burnout, and it definitely has existed for quite a while. And I think it was perhaps spoken about more in the entrepreneurial space because there are a lot of people with that mindset and that type A personality and big goals, big dreams. And it, you know, the culture was, and it has shifted. It is shifting, I should say. There's still a lot of work to do, but it was all about the hustle and the grind and the pushing yourself. And I contributed to that myself 100%. I wore my busyness like a badge, and I was proud of how crazy busy I was and my big goals and dreams. And I still have the big goals and dreams, but I think it's about finding a way to achieve them without damaging yourself along the way.
Yes. So I think it's the understanding that, yes, we can achieve our big goals, but let's do it in a safe way.
Yes.
We don't have to drive ourselves into the ground because we're not doing anybody any favours.
No.
The world misses out on what we could possibly achieve or what we have the potential to achieve.
Yes.
We get burnt out in the process because I just see it as such a waste of human potential.
Yes, definitely.
So there's much to do, as you say.
Yes. Have you noticed a big difference in the way men and women talk about burnout and the behaviours or I guess the experiences that they may have when they have burnout themselves?
Yes, there is a difference. Burnout is something that I think women, even though some of us still find it difficult to talk about, I think women overall do find it easier to talk about things when they're not going quite right. It's the same with mental health.
Yes.
You know, if somebody's got anxiety or depression, I think women overall find it a bit easier to talk about how they truly feel. And I think for a lot of men, they struggle with that. And where the man is sort of set up as the leader, the authority, the person who takes care of everything, you don't want to portray any sign of weakness. And I actually am very worried about a lot of men because, and particularly at this time, as you say, the year of burnout.
Yes.
Because they are working so darn hard to look after everybody else in their organisations, pushing themselves to the absolute limit, and they've got nobody to talk to. Well, in some instances, obviously, that's a generalisation, but often they don't have somebody to talk to. And it manifests itself differently in men. In women, we tend to notice that we're just getting more and more fatigued. It's that level of exhaustion, which is beyond exhaustion. It's like you can't get off the couch. You can't get out of bed. Men don't seem to get that as often. What they manifest is an increase in the level of cynicism.
Right.
They become very negatively oriented. They turn, they're a bit snipey. They'll snap at people. They'll distance themselves from other people first, and people are sort of walking on eggshells around them, or don't upset the boss because he's in one of those moods, that sort of thing. They may never actually experience exhaustion or the fatigue, They may, but they may not. So it is different from men and women. But I think the big problem is that it's now almost perceived as a woman's problem.
Yes.
And it's not. By
Definitely
no means.
Not. No.
And there was a survey done in Sydney, the Global Leaders Wellness Survey, which found that, and I can't remember if it was distinguished by gender as well, but just overall of the 2,000 people that were surveyed, of the leaders, 74% was shown to be at risk of burnout now.
Wow.
And that's huge. Horrendous. And so if the men aren't able to speak up or to recognise that actually they're at that cliff edge, how can we ensure that we help to protect them and their families and everybody else associated with them? It's a big challenge for us. And I heard just earlier this week that the rate of burning out from working from home is continuing to climb at a rapid rate. And, everybody's now saying, oh, this is going to be the new way of working. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's a hybrid, who knows? I've been working from home for my 10 years now.
Yeah.
And in many ways I love it, but I also know it's a challenge, especially when you're a little bit of a perfectionist, a bit of a high achiever, a little bit of a person who just likes to work because they're a workaholic, to put those boundaries in place.
Yes.
Just keep on working. And of course, we're adding more stress to our lives because we're just adding more and more to our plates. And we know that the average person is now working an extra 2 hours every day, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What else could we be doing with those 2 hours? We could be down the park, we could be down the beach, we could be chilling out, just enjoying a conversation with a friend.
Yes. Yeah, it's incredible because I think at the start when people were sort of trying to get used to lockdown and the challenges they were facing, a lot of the conversations were about the time that they'd saved in their day because they weren't commuting anymore. But now it has been replaced with more work because your laptop or your computer is just there. If the boundaries aren't in place, particularly those who don't have a home office to, sort of put their laptop away, close the door and walk away from, if they're working in their lounge room or their bedroom, even worse, there's not a physical boundary there to make you sort of say, okay, work is finished now. I will walk away from that and, continue with home life or, cook dinner or whatever it is. So I'm definitely guilty of that myself. And in conversations with plenty of other people, business owners and my colleagues, it's the same. Yeah, I think definitely the sort of second half of this year has seen people increasing their work hours rather than, managing that balance.
Yeah. And what's even worse? Even though you may have experienced burnout and taken a long time to recover, you are not immune to experiencing it again. Because earlier this year, when the lockdown came and everybody was sort of running around like headless chooks, oh, now I've got to work from home, now I've got to do this. In my line of work, which was as a speaker and a trainer and facilitator, all of a sudden, everything that I did previously had to be done differently. It had to be all done in a virtual way on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or something like that. And so I was working harder than I'd ever worked before. Yeah, I was putting in many more hours and often unpaid because I was busy creating courses. I was providing free webinars. I was doing this. I was doing that. I was doing everything else. And after about 6 weeks, I went bloop. Yeah. And this time it was actually accompanied by a depression as well, which was not good. And I thought, how could I have got myself into this state again? I mean, it's obviously there's this self-blame going on here. But I realized that, we're hardwired to be who we are. And even though we know all the right things to do, if we're put in a set of circumstances, we can easily fall into that trap again. And I think it's just important to remember, we're human, we're fallible, we're vulnerable, and we stuff up quite often. Yes. And to cut ourselves some slack and say, you know what, stop. That's what I did. I just stopped. and said, take some deep breaths. Let's go back to sustainable happiness again and enjoy the time to think about things differently again. And that's what I did. And that has made such a difference. Even though I'd put all these good habits into place over the last 10 years, poof, out the window.
Yeah. Well, the situation had changed drastically. And as you said, all of a sudden, you know, for people like myself who love structure and routine and thrive off planning everything to a T, all of a sudden, all of the plans went out the window and we did have to adapt. There was no choice. It was adapt or not. So how did you find coming out of the slump this time? Did you find the process was easier? Were you gentler on yourself this time?
I was gentler on myself and I was far more open about it. And I think that made a huge difference as well.
Not having to hide it.
Not having to hide it, because I think that's such hard work in itself.
It is, yep.
And everybody understood. And also I started hearing about what other people had been going through as well. And I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, we're all doing the best we can to cope with this abnormal situation. And some of us are just finding it tougher than others. So let's come together, because it's that bringing together of people that is critical to the recovery, but also to move forward and find, you know, the pleasure and the joy of living.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Have you found, I know that everyone's burnout experiences and their burnout journey is different for each individual, but have you found anything that people have done similarly that have helped them come out of it?
I think the biggest thing for many people was to let their bodies and minds heal, just give themselves the time, because we're so time pressured. We're thinking, oh, well, I feel like this today, I'll be all right by the end of the week or next week. And of course, burnout doesn't work like that.
No.
If only.
Yes.
and it's like sort of the pandemic. We don't know when burnout will be, you know, we have recovered completely from it. And it's a bit daunting to think, well, this is likely to possibly take weeks, months, or even years, because we're all different. And to give ourselves permission to say, you know what, I just need to make myself available to heal. Because if it's like any illness. If we get really sick with the flu and we're prostrate in bed, ideally we don't get our laptop out, but we give ourselves permission just to lie there, take whatever medication we need to take, and allow the healing process to take place. And it's exactly the same with burnout. But because if we try to fight it, we don't win. Burnout wins, and we actually prolong the proceedings. That's what I've noticed in other people. They think, oh yeah, I know I'm feeling a bit burned out, but I'll just keep going a bit longer. And I'm thinking, no, please stop.
Yes. Yeah. And you mentioned permission then. I think that is one of the toughest things that we sort of require of ourselves, to be able to stop and do nothing. You know, there is such guilt still associated with taking a break or saying, okay, I'm not coping with this, I need to stop. Yeah. And I think from a workplace viewpoint, you know, we've got mental health days available to us, but how many people actually take them? Yeah.
Because people that I've spoken to have said, well, I have actually taken them, but I haven't called it that.
Yes.
I've called it something else. I've just told the boss I've got gastro, I've got the flu or something, but basically they just need time out. We just need to get better at saying, I'm just overwhelmed at the moment and I'm just going to take a day or two off. Because if we take those small steps early in the piece, when we recognise we're starting to push ourselves too far, then we can probably minimise the effect on our bodies and our minds and not actually get to the point of complete collapse.
Yes.
Which takes longer to recover from. So I think what I'm really heartened by is hearing about how different organisations are now really taking this on and looking for ways to support their staff by saying, well, yeah, let's have a family day where everybody takes the day off or has time out to do things, or just said, you know what, and of course if the leaders are doing it, it gives the permission to everybody else to do the same.
Definitely.
And then we take care of ourselves better. So if you've just done a massive project and it's like, oh, thank goodness that's done. If everybody is then told, right, well done team, you've done brilliantly, let's celebrate and then take a little bit of time out.
Yeah.
That's the best way to sustain ourselves.
Yeah. And it might even be, like you said, a matter of changing the language that we use.
Yes.
So if we don't want to, I guess feel the shame or the guilt that we attach to suffering from burnout or hitting burnout, perhaps it is just a matter of saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I just need a day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel very sad when I hear people tell me that they know they've got burnout. They've discussed it with their boss and their boss is saying, no, you're fine. You're just stressed. I mean, that's hideous.
It is.
Because the two are very different. They can coexist. And a lot of people will sometimes have burnout accompanied by anxiety or panic. I had panic with my first episode. And it was really weird because I was completely dissociated. I mean, as a doctor, I know what panic looks like in people. And then I was experiencing it myself, but it was actually as if I was watching myself from up high. And I was thinking, oh, this is what a panic attack feels like. Oh, gosh. It was really uncomfortable, I have to say. It's not very nice. Your heart goes brrr and starts going, 200 kilometers an hour and you can't breathe and you feel like you're going to fall over and all these other things. But I was completely dissociated from it. It was weird. Yeah. And I know other people do get depression along with burnout. So I think it's really important to understand that burnout can be accompanied by other things as well, but it's important to separate them because they're managed differently. Definitely. Obviously, if somebody's got severe depression, they might need counselling for that or medication or both. Burnout, a lot of people require counselling from somebody who's experienced in helping people with burnout. But, it's not the same. And I think, it's very easy to think, burnout, you're just a bit run down, you're a bit depressed.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not that at all.
And I might just ask finally, if there was someone listening today to this episode who's going through burnout, right in the thick of it, what is one piece of advice you could give them to take away today?
I think the big thing is the self-compassion piece. To treat yourself as if you were talking to a friend who was going through a tough time. What would you say to them? And to take that on board for yourself. And a thing that goes with that is then to reach out to somebody you trust, who is prepared just to sit and listen, because that is the first step to really understanding what's going on for yourself, but then will help you probably find the courage to step forward and say, I need some assistance with this. It's not working. I need to do something differently here. So those two things, some self-compassion and then to find the right person to talk to. Doesn't matter who it is. Yes. The dog will do if necessary. But just somebody to sit and listen. It's not about being told what to do. You just need sometimes somebody just to hear what you're feeling or what you're experiencing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Amazing. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for your time today. I know that you've definitely helped at least one person listening today through some of the stories you've shared. So thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Lovely to talk with you, Jess.
And you.